Good morning, students. Very good morning. Yesterday we already discussing about the brain parts. Today we are going to discussing about each and every part of the brain in the brief manner. The brain, it is consist of how many parts? 3 parts. What is the first part? Forebrain. Second part, midbrain. Third part, hindbrain. First part, forebrain. Today we are going to discussing about the forebrain. What is the first part? 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 Forebrain. The forebrain, it is consist of the first part, cerebrum. The second part, it is known as a olfactory epithelium. Third part, diencephalon. The forebrain, it is consist of, what is the first part of the forebrain? Cerebrum. What is the first part? Cerebrum. What is the second part of the forebrain? Olfactory lobes or lobe. Third one, diencephalon. Diencephalon means 3 parts. The diencephalon means epithalamus, thalamus, hypothalamus. Forebrain. Today we are going to discussing about the first part of the brain is known as a forebrain. The forebrain first part, cerebrum. Second part, olfactory lobes. Third part, diencephalon. First part we are going to discussing about what is the first part of the forebrain? Cerebrum. What is the first part of the forebrain? What is the first part of the forebrain? Cerebrum. What is the first part? It is the largest part. It is occupied to the brain. It is the largest part occupied to the brain. What is the first part? Cerebrum. Cerebrum means largest part. Means largest brain or largest brain part. Large brain. Large brain or small? Large brain. Largest part of the brain, it is known as a cerebrum. The largest part of the brain is known as a cerebrum. The cerebrum, it is consists of 2 cerebral hemispheres. The cerebrum consists of 2 cerebral hemispheres. 2 cerebral hemispheres. The cerebrum, see here, this entire cerebrum, it is consists of 2 cerebral hemispheres. The brain, if you observe any brain model, if you observe any brain part, the superior part, it is separated and inferior part also separated. See here, the superior part is separated and inferior part is separated. This superior part is separated and inferior part connected. The superior part is separated with the help of, it is nothing but longitudinal fissure. The inferior part, it is connected with the nerve cord. It is known as a corpus callosum. The cerebrum, it is divided into 2 cerebral hemispheres. The cerebrum is divided into 2 cerebral hemispheres. The superior side of the cerebral hemisphere, it is separated by the superior side of the cerebral hemisphere. Superior side of the cerebral hemisphere is separate. Superior side of the cerebral hemisphere. Superior side of the cerebral hemisphere. Superior side of the cerebral hemisphere is separated separated. Is separated by the longitudinal fissure. The inferior side of the cerebral hemisphere. The inferior side of the cerebral hemisphere is separated by the hemisphere is connected by the corpus callosum. The nerve cord is known as a corpus callosum. For example, it is the brain. The superior side is separated, but the inferior side is connected. This superior side is separated. It is one hemisphere. Two hemispheres. Two cerebral hemispheres. The entire part of the cerebrum consists of two hemispheres. One is right side, one is left side. One is first, it is a right side and left side. It is one hemisphere, it is one hemisphere. How many hemispheres? Two cerebral hemispheres. This two cerebral hemispheres means cerebrum. The cerebrum, it is separated by the two cerebral hemispheres. The superior side, it is separated by the, it is a longitudinal fissure. But the inferior side, it is connected. The inferior side is connected with the help of the corpus callosum. The inferior side of the cerebral hemisphere is connected by the corpus callosum. Each hemisphere means the two means right side one hemisphere, the left side also one hemisphere means it is nothing but cerebrum. Each hemisphere, it is consists of the cerebral hemispheres. Cerebral hemispheres. Consist of eight, the frontal lobes, eight lobes means right side hemisphere consists of four lobes, the left side hemisphere consists of four lobes. The total lobes, eight lobes. The cerebral hemispheres consist of eight lobes. Eight lobes means, what is the first lobe? Frontal lobe. The second one is the parietal lobe. It is the frontal lobe. This frontal lobe, inside the frontal lobe, it consists of neurons. Next one, parietal lobe. Next, the roof of the skull, it is known as the parietal lobe. Inside these lobes are they protected by the brain. Inside the lobes, they consist of neurons. The next one is known as after the frontal lobe, parietal lobe. Next one, temporal lobe. The next one, occipital lobe. This each hemisphere consists of how many lobes? Four lobes. The total lobes, eight lobes. These lobes are protected by the brain. What is the function of this frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe? If you observe the brain parts, what is the, if you observe the brain parts, What is it? Each the cerebral hemisphere consists of how many lobes? 8 lobes. How many lobes? It consists of 8 lobes. How many lobes? It consists of 8 lobes. How many lobes? The brain is consists of 8 lobes. Okay. The brain is consists of 8 lobes. What is the first lobe? Frontal lobes. This frontal lobes. Frontal lobes. Frontal lobes. Frontal lobes. The next lobe. Parietal lobe. What is the lobe? Parietal lobe. Parietal lobe. The next one. Occipital lobe. Occipital lobe. This entire lobe is nothing but temporal lobe. Temporal lobe. This all parts. It is the temporal lobe. What is the function of this frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe? The frontal lobe, it is well developed means the creativeness also increases. The memory powers also increases. The thinking also increases. The morals also increases. The judgment also increases. What is the function? This all frontal lobes. This frontal lobe inside the lobe. It is the lobe means bone. The frontal bone. The frontal bone inside bone consists of neurons. What is the function of the frontal lobe? What is the function of this frontal lobe? This frontal lobe, it is helpful for the creativeness. Creativeness. In your frontal lobe is well developed means like Einstein, Thomas Alva Edison. Your creativeness also increases. Your judgment also increases. What is the other function of the frontal lobes? Other functions: creativeness and calculations. Calculations can easily calculated. Okay, any values like a calculators with the help of frontal lobe. Once you reaches into the 18th age, once you are developed into the our habits are changed. In our habits are changed means in our habits such as reading habits and dancing, painting, the different activities we are participated means our frontal lobes also, our brain also developed like Einstein and Thomas Alva Edison. Because of the frontal lobes are well developed in the Einstein and Thomas Alva Edison. What is the function of these frontal lobes? Creativeness also more, and also calculations also more, judgment also more. Judgment also more. Those human beings, the frontal lobe developments, those human beings, the frontal lobe developments, creativeness also more, calculations also more, judgment also more, and also moral sense, the moral sense also well developed. Those are frontal lobes are developed means the frontal neurons are well developed means the creativeness also more, the calculations also more, the judgment also more. And also other importance, the voluntary actions also well developed in the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe consists of number of neurons. These neurons are participated into the creativeness increases, calculations, judgment, moral sense, and also voluntary actions. Coming to the parietal lobe. What is the function of this parietal lobe? These parietal lobes are helpful for the touch, and you are learning from the different languages, sensory impulse. What is the function of this parietal lobe? Touch. What is the function? Touch. You can respond to the touch because of it's a parietal lobe consists of touch. and also increasing the languages, learning the languages, and also other functions of the this parietal lobe, sensory functions. It is sensory impulse, sensory receptors present in the parietal lobe. What is the function of the temporal lobe? What is the function of this temporal lobe? What is the function of this temporal lobe? This temporal lobe also consists of neurons. What is the function of this temporal lobe? Learning, hearing, the maximum memory stored, the maximum memory storage in the temporal lobes, the maximum memory storage in the temporal lobes. Learning, hearing, maximum storage. The maximum storage, it is helpful for the temporal lobes, and also it is helpful for the sexual desire activities also. Okay, learning, hearing, maximum memory storages also. It is the hearing, learning, maximum memory storage also. It is helpful for the temporal lobe. Coming to the occipital lobe. This occipital lobe is helpful for the vision. Occipital lobes are helpful for the vision. Once the occipital lobe neurons are damaged, this leads into the blindness. Once the occipital lobe is damaged, you are going to the blindness. The occipital lobes are helpful for the vision. The occipital lobe is helpful for the vision. Once the occipital lobe is damaged, it leads into the blindness. Okay, now what is the first part? Frontal lobes, parietal lobes, temporal lobes, occipital lobes. The frontal lobe, if you observe the frontal lobe, it is consist of one important area. It is known as a Broca's area. What is the area? Broca's area. What is the area? Broca's area. The frontal lobe consists of one important special area. It is known as a Broca's area. This area neurons produce. Broca's means it is indicate scientist name. This area neurons produce speech production. What is it now? They produce speech production. They are helpful for the speaking. Which area it is helpful for the speaking? It is the Broca's area. Speech production. They will produce speech. Okay, whenever you produce speech, which neurons they will helpful for the listening the speech, learning the speech. Okay, now they are learning for the speech. Okay, now see here, for example, Broca's area means it is located in the frontal lobes. Broca's, they produce speech production. And also temporal lobe. The temporal lobe is consists of one important area. The temporal lobe is consists of one important area. One important area, it is known as a Wernicke's area. What is the area? Wernicke's area. This area, it is helpful for the hearing the speech, learning the speech is helpful for the hearing the speech. This area, Wernicke's area, is helpful for the hearing the speech. But these frontal lobes are helpful for this frontal lobes. Consider one important area is known as a Broca's area. This Broca's area helpful for to produce the speech. Once the Broca's area damages, you will not speak. Properly also, because the neurons are damaged. For example, in this area, Wernicke's area. This Wernicke's area, for example, damage in our brain means this neurons are damaged means You are not learning anything. You are not hearing anything. You are not storing any memory also. You are not storing any memory also. The maximum storage is temporal lobes. The temporal lobes. It is the first part of the forebrain. What is the first part of the forebrain? Cerebrum. What is the first part? Cerebrum. What is the first part of the forebrain? Cerebrum. What is the first part of the forebrain is known as, what is the first part of the forebrain is known as a cerebrum. What is the first part of the forebrain? Cerebrum. What is the first part of the forebrain? Cerebrum. The cerebrum is consist of cerebral hemispheres. Cerebral hemisphere. Two cerebral hemispheres. Two cerebral hemispheres also consist of forebrain. The second part of the brain. The second part of the forebrain. The second part of the forebrain is known as a olfactory. What is known? Olfactory lobes. Olfactory lobes. This olfactory lobes consist of olfactory neurons. These olfactory neurons, they are located in the forebrain. They are located in the forebrain. The main function of these olfactory lobes are located in the inner side of the olfactory epithelium. If you observe the nose, the olfactory epithelium, the olfactory epithelium. See, observe here is the olfactory epithelium. The olfactory epithelium is the olfactory epithelium. It is the olfactory epithelium. This olfactory epithelium is this outer surface of the roof of the nose. This olfactory lobe is connected to the brain. Is the olfactory lobe. This olfactory lobe consists of number of neurons. This olfactory lobes consists to the number of. This olfactory lobe connected to the brain, connected to the forebrain. What is the function of this olfactory lobe? It is helpful for the smell, identification of the smell. Whenever the smell reaches into the smell, you can receive the olfactory epitheliums, the olfactory lobes. It is look like a spoon shaped. What is the shape of the olfactory lobe? Spoon shaped or club shaped olfactory lobes. These olfactory lobes are present in the inner side of the ear. It is the inner side of the nasal chambers. The nasal chamber consists of olfactory lobe. These olfactory lobes are helpful for the receiving the smell. These are the consist of number of neurons. This neuron directly connect to the forebrain. The forebrain under the category of the olfactory lobes. These lobes are located. These lobes are they will send message to the receiving the smell. It is the second part of the forebrain. The third part of the brain. The third part of the forebrain is known as diencephalon. What is a cephalon? Diencephalon. If you observe the brain part, diencephalons. What is the part? Diencephalons. The roof of the thalamus. It is known as epithalamus. Thalamus, epithalamus. The next part, it is known as a thalamus. What is the next part? Thalamus. The next one, hypothalamus. What is the thalamus? Hypothalamus. These three parts, first part, second part, third part, it is known as a It is the diencephalon. Diencephalon means epithalamus, the roof of the thalamus. The roof of the thalamus. The roof of the thalamus. You can observe here. It is the corpus callosum. Corpus callosum. The corpus callosum below that, it is the epithalamus. Next one, thalamus. Next one, hypothalamus. Hypothalamus. Below the hypothalamus, there is kind of pituitary gland. That is kind of that is pituitary gland. Okay, epithalamus, thalamus. What do you know? See here, first one, epithalamus. 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 It is the epithalamus. It is the non-nervous part. Non-nervous part. Nervous part. Non-nervous part means here neurons are absent. Neurons are absent. Neurons are absent. What is the function of this epithalamus? This epithalamus produce cerebrospinal fluid along with pia mater. Epithalamus produce cerebrospinal fluid along with the epithalamus produce cerebrospinal fluid along with the pia mater. The forebrain is nothing but it is innervated. It is contact with the cerebral hemispheres. This produce cerebrospinal fluid. Okay, now what is the ependymal cells? Produce cerebrospinal fluid, and also this epithalamus also produce cerebrospinal fluid. Okay, the cerebrospinal fluid. Coming to the second part, it is the first part. The second part, thalamus. What is the name? Thalamus. Below the epithalamus, it is known as a thalamus. Roof of the thalamus, it is known as the epithalamus. Thalamus. What is the function of this thalamus? It is helpful for the relay center. What is the function? Relay center. What is the meaning of the relay center? They will send message. To the upper part of the brain to the lower part of the brain. What is the function of the thalamus? What is the meaning of relay center? The information passed from the upper part of the brain to the lower part of the brain. What is the meaning of the relay center? The information passed from the upper part of the brain to lower part of the brain. The message, the information sent to the okay, this epithalamus, they will send message to the lower body, upper brain to the lower, okay, they will send to the upper to the lower part of the brain. They receive the information. Coming to the hypothalamus. This hypothalamus, it is act as a they are participated into the endocrine function as well as nervous function. They are participated into the endocrine function. Endocrine means hormonal function. They are participating in the hormonal function and also participate into the nervous regulation. Nervous functions. They participate into the nervous functions. What is the function of the neuron hypothalamus? What is the function of the neurons functions? What is the function of this nervous functions of the hypothalamus? What is the function of the hypothalamus? What is the function of the hypothalamus? The hypothalamus is participated into the hypothalamus are also the thermostatic organ or thermoregulation in our body temperature 37 degrees centigrade. Which part it is responsible to maintain the body temperature? It is the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is nothing but thermoregulation. Thermoregulation means our body temperature is to maintain the 37 degrees centigrade. Our body temperature to maintain the 37 degrees centigrade. Only hypothalamus neurons. The hypothalamus consists of number of neurons. These neurons are responsible for to maintain the body temperature 37 degrees centigrade. That's why the hypothalamus are also known as a thermostatic organ. Thermostatic organ or thermostatic part. Thermostatic organ or thermostatic part. To maintain the body temperature. To maintain the body temperature. To maintain the body temperature. It is the first function of the hypothalamus. What is the second function of the hypothalamus? What is the second function of the hypothalamus? Sweating. Okay. Produce in our body produce sweating because of hypothalamus. Because of hypothalamus. What is the third function? Hunger. What is the next function? Hunger. Here the more hunger times. At the time of the 12 o'clock, 12:30 or 1:30, 2 o'clock means morning time, afternoon time, evening time and night time. You have more hunger. Hunger levels means to control by the hypothalamus and also the thrust center. Thrust means, for example, in our body, decreasing of water levels in our body, more thrust in the neck part, more thrust area, and also and satiety center. Satiety center means once you are eating food, okay, full of stomach. Satiety center, thrust center, hunger center, sweating center, thermoregulatory maintenance center. These all functions are involved to the hypothalamus and also sexual desire centers. What is the sixth important function? Sexual desires. Sexual desires, the sexual activities, the sexual desires and sexual functions also controlled by the hypothalamus. And also the hypothalamus also participate into the emotional activities also. But the maximum emotional brain. What is the name? Emotional brain. That is nothing but limbic system. What is the system? Limbic system. Emotional activities controlled by the limbic system. The emotional activities controlled by the limbic system. These are the first part of the. These are the functions of the related to the first part of the brain. First part of the brain. What is the first part of the brain? Forebrain. What is the how many parts are present in the forebrain? Cerebrum. The second part is known as the olfactory lobes. Third part is known as the diencephalon. These are the important functions of the forebrain. These are the important functions of the forebrain. Thank you very much.